Hello, everyone. Welcome to Diplomatic Briefing. China has long made it clear that any unfair trade suppression that harms Chinese interests will definitely be met with countermeasures. Earlier, the United States announced new port fees on cargo ships built and operated by China, claiming the move is to promote the development of the U.S. shipbuilding industry and suppress China's leading position in shipbuilding. According to the new regulations, every vessel associated with China will be required to pay port fees in the U.S. based on tonnage, up to a maximum of 5 times per year. Most of the new port fees will take effect on October 14th. If shipowners order vessels from the United States, they will be exempted from these fees. On October 10th, China's Ministry of Transport announced on its official website that the U.S. measures seriously violate international trade principles in the China-U.S. Maritime Agreement, causing severe disruption to maritime trade between the two countries. China has decided that starting from October 14th, ships owned by American enterprises, other organizations, and individuals, as well as ships in which American enterprises, other organizations, or individuals directly or indirectly hold 25% or more equity, including voting rights, board chairmanship, or are otherwise owned or operated by such entities, and all ships flying the U.S. flag or built in the United States, will be subject to a special port fee. This fee will be collected by the Maritime Authority at the port where the ship docks. The affected vessels will be charged the special port fee per voyage, and this will be implemented in phases. When these ships call at Chinese ports, the special port fee will be 400 renminbi per net ton. Afterwards, the fee will be increased once each on April 17th of next year and the year after. Starting from April 17th, 2028, the fee will be raised to 1,120 renminbi. If a vessel calls at multiple Chinese ports during the same voyage, the special port fee is only paid at the first port of call, and not at the subsequent ports. Also, the special port fee charged to the same vessel will not exceed 5 voyages within a year. The Ministry of Transport also responded to reporters by saying that the actions of the United States fully expose the unilateralism and protectionism at its core, are clearly discriminatory, seriously undermine the legitimate rights and interests of China's shipping industry, severely disrupt the stability of global supply chains, and gravely damage the international economic and trade order. The spokesperson said that China will resolutely take countermeasures in accordance with the law against the wrongful actions of the United States, promote the establishment of a fair and just order in the international shipping market, and safeguard the security and stability of the international trade supply chain. The spokesperson described the decision to impose a special port service fee on U.S.-related vessels as a legitimate measure by China to protect the lawful rights and interests of Chinese shipping companies, and urged the U.S. side to immediately correct its wrongful actions and stop its unreasonable suppression of China's shipping industry. To sum up a few observations, first, China's countermeasures emphasize the reciprocal collection of special port service fees, and this has also been discussed with the United States. Second, the United States is now no longer capable of building commercial vessels. American shipping companies are not considered major players globally, and they simply can't compare to China's shipbuilding capabilities or the scale of Chinese shipping companies. Therefore, judging from the new Chinese regulations, the impact on the U.S. is not as significant as it is on the Chinese fleet. However, at present, the extra charges for entering U.S. ports are mainly borne by American traders, which will only drive up inflation in the United States. Third, now that China has introduced this countermeasure of imposing fees, if it extends these charges to secondary sanctions, that is, if every link in the shipping business chain that involves an American company is subject to fees, then, since the U.S. dominates shipping, insurance, and financial products, the blow to the U.S. would be significant. And outsiders predict that if Trump continues to exert maximum pressure on China, it will be inevitable for China to respond with this countermeasure. In addition, on October 9th, China's Ministry of Commerce issued 2 announcements regarding the strengthening of export controls on rare earth-related items, which sparked heated discussion in foreign media. The Financial Times pointed out that China's new restrictions are similar to the U.S. Foreign Direct Product Rule (FDPR) export control system, which is exactly the rule the U.S. uses to prevent third countries from exporting semiconductor-related products to China. Bloomberg commented that, just as the U.S. and China are about to sit down for face-to-face negotiations again, China is demonstrating its trade leverage. Reuters noted that, in addition to issuing 2 announcements on strengthening export controls of rare earth-related items, China also made several other announcements on the same day. Not only did it add several new rare earth elements and dozens of rare earth processing equipment to the export control list, but it also included items related to superhard materials, lithium batteries, and artificial graphite anode materials, among others. British media believe that these measures are significant for trade negotiations between China and the United States and will help strengthen China's influence. According to an analysis by the Wall Street Journal in the U.S., as Western countries work to build their own rare earth industry chains to reduce dependence on China, China's latest moves have further expanded its control over the rare earth supply chain. According to new regulations announced by China's Ministry of Commerce on October 9, China will implement export controls on certain overseas rare earth-related items and rare earth-related technologies that contain Chinese components. The Financial Times pointed out that this means any magnets containing Chinese rare earth elements or produced using Chinese rare earth mining, refining, or magnet-making technologies will require Chinese approval for export by foreign companies. The Ministry of Commerce stated in the announcement that some overseas organizations and individuals have been found to directly or, after processing, transfer and provide rare earth-controlled items originating from China to relevant organizations and individuals, either directly or indirectly, for use in military and other sensitive fields. In order to safeguard China's national security and interests, and to fulfill international obligations such as non-proliferation, China is lawfully imposing controls on certain overseas rare earth-related items containing Chinese components. The new regulations cover rare earth magnets and certain semiconductor materials manufactured abroad that contain 0.1% or more Chinese rare earth components, as well as the listed items produced overseas using technologies related to the mining, smelting and separation, metal smelting, magnet manufacturing, and rare earth secondary resource recycling of rare earths originating from China. These items will be subject to the new regulations starting from October 1st. For some of the listed items originating from China, the new rules take effect immediately. In addition, China will, in principle, no longer approve export licenses for most items intended for military use. As for export applications involving research on artificial intelligence with potential military uses, China will review each application on a case-by-case basis. Rare earth metals and magnets are core materials for high-tech products such as smartphones, electric vehicles, and fighter jets. China realized its importance long ago and has spent decades establishing a dominant position in global rare earth mining and processing. According to data, China controls about 70% of the world's rare earth mining, 90% of separation and processing, and 93% of magnet manufacturing. It is widely believed that after Trump launched the tariff war in April, China's move to impose export controls on rare earths dealt a blow to the U.S. automotive supply chain, forcing the Trump administration back to the negotiating table. Since then, the rare earth issue has repeatedly come up in multiple rounds of China-U.S. trade talks, and the timing of the new regulations coincides closely with when the public speculates the two countries' leaders will officially meet. Bhaskaran, an expert on critical minerals at the U.S. think tank Center for Strategic and International Studies, analyzed that the timing of this move is highly strategic. China has placed another set of new pieces on the negotiating table. Wang Dan, China director at the U.S. consulting firm Eurasia Group, pointed out that the new rules represent a major upgrade in China's rare earth export control system, expanding its scope from raw materials to technology and intellectual property. This is likely to strengthen China's influence in negotiations with the United States. These restrictions have little impact on China's own production, but they will deepen foreign dependence on China's expertise. To reduce its dependence on Chinese rare earths, the United States has ramped up efforts to boost domestic production, adopt alternative materials, and seek strategic partnerships with third countries. Foreign media believe that China's new announcement may hinder these U.S. efforts. Bhaskaran commented that China's new regulations are clearly a challenge to the plans of the U.S. and its allies to build their own industrial chains, and are intended to prevent any potential leakage of technological capabilities when Chinese companies cooperate with their foreign counterparts. Bloomberg believes that the announcement also includes provisions for reviewing chips containing Chinese rare earths, which seems to be aimed at the U.S. semiconductor industry. Reuters also pointed out that the day before China released its new announcement, U.S. lawmakers were once again pushing for a broader ban on the export of chip manufacturing equipment to China. Vedor, deputy director of the China Studies Department at the Caprinasia, said that the implicit threat here is that China might retaliate against foreign chip export controls by restricting the export of rare earths to chip manufacturers. Bloomberg's analysis pointed out that this new regulation may unsettle foreign companies that have just regained access to rare earth supplies and make them question their investments in U.S. production. Senti, president of the U.S. Advanced Magnet Lab, said that the real concern is that any company sourcing equipment from China could face supply disruptions, and subsequent maintenance and service requests might also go unanswered. In addition to these two announcements, on October 9th, the Ministry of Commerce and the General Administration of Customs also issued 4 consecutive announcements, declaring export controls on items related to superhard materials, certain rare earth equipment and associated raw and auxiliary materials, some medium and heavy rare earth items, as well as lithium batteries and artificial graphite anode materials. Dai Minghao, a trade compliance partner at King & Wood Mallesons, told the Financial Times that China's new regulations are closely related to the U.S. export control system and represent a systematic and comprehensive response to the United States. To put it simply, the new regulations provide a very detailed list of the standards for rare earth applications in different categories and explain how they will be affected by the new controls. And most crucially, the new regulations cover materials containing 0.1% or more of Chinese heavy rare earth elements. In other words, if a manufacturer wants to produce a component or a finished product, like a chip, as long as the chip contains 0.1% or more of materials made from Chinese heavy rare earths, China can regulate it. The authority to grant or deny you the legal right to produce is in China's hands. This really lets the U.S. and the Western world experience what it feels like to have their supply chain choked. Second, the new regulations specifically target high-end chip manufacturing. That means, in the chip manufacturing industry for chips below 14 nanometers, every process that uses Chinese heavy rare earths will be affected. To put it plainly, TSMC making 3-nanometer chips for Apple's phones can't bypass China's approval. Otherwise, the chips for the phones simply can't be produced. Third, will China's move push the U.S. and the West to speed up their efforts towards self-sufficiency? However, the U.S. can't learn from China's model, and even if the West tries to do it themselves, it won't happen in less than 3 to 5 years. So how can distant water put out a nearby fire?